the past few weeks, I've been on a steady diet of horsepower, neck snapping fun, and in some cases, grip at the four corners that truly rocketed me off the line. And all of those models really prepared me for what lies behind me this week. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, if the yellow brake calipers didn't give you any indication, this is a powerhouse, specifically the 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk Edition. So I'm a big fan of the Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I thought I'd tested about every model, everything from the gas-sipping V6 to the Eco Diesel and even the variations on the V8. So, I thought I'd cover the basics. Well, that was until this vehicle showed up. And what really gave me the first hint was on the outside. And what you'll notice is this really smoky exterior, dark on dark accents, since this is kind of the new norm for that sporty look. So I thought, well, it's just a dressed up model. Well, then I looked down just a little bit at the four corners. Now we got the dark wheels, the matte finish when it comes to the rim. So of course, well, we're not blinging out anymore. That's the new millennial way. Well, then I saw those yellow brake calipers. Well, now I'm thinking this isn't your average model. So let's crank her up and see what it sounds like. Now hold your horses, it's way too early to crank this bad boy up because I at least want you to hang around the show just a little bit longer and we'll see some other details. But one thing I like to do on a vehicle like this is, well, get to know it. And it starts again with the outside, looking at all the different appointments. And one thing that indicates this is a muscle beast is, well, right here on the hood, and we'll get to that in just a second. But one thing to talk about really is the power that lies beneath, and well, with power comes responsibility. And it starts with, well, sneaking up to this vehicle, because after all, if you're driving a Toyota Corolla on a Tuesday, you can't step behind this on a Wednesday. You're just not ready. So one thing I like to do is start with the key 5 and the good old remote start. What that does is, well, let me ease into it. And it all starts with the crank. Lets you know, okay, there's some horsepower, so let me walk around and kick the tires before I truly stomp that gas. I've turned the engine off for now, 1, so you can hear me better, and 2, to keep your heart from racing, because every time you crank this vehicle, you're definitely gonna feel the excitement. Now let's talk about some numbers. Well, not the big one yet under the hood, but the overall numbers. First off is the length, around about 189 inches. Wheelbase fairly stretched at about 111, squarely putting this vehicle into the mid-size SUV market and really creeping around what the competition is doing. But one thing the competition does better is, well, right about here, delivering that third row, and something I've argued here and there on this vehicle. And after all, this vehicle has multiple personas, so why not, well, give that 2-person extra option when they need it. And well, you can argue, Jeep people, that, well, that's just not what this vehicle does. But this vehicle, well, does a lot. First off is, well, it's a track edition, just like you see here, or the Trailhawk, which is more the off-road prowess, and that's going to give you multiple differences as well. Like, for example, the ground clearance, specifically on this vehicle, around about 8 inches. Go to the Trailhawk, well, that's about 2 inches more. Well, 2 must be a magic number, because why not go, well, 2 more in the back? Just something I want to argue once again. Let's save the 7-passenger argument for another day and really focus on what the Trackhawk does well. And after all, it doesn't care about getting your entire family to the show. It just wants to get them there fast. Now, looking at the design features we saw on the side, it truly sweeps around here to the front. And what you'll see is that good old guerrilla warfare, that monochromatic body color scheme we saw on the side, even right down to the wheels, is right here front and center. Of course, adorning that typical Jeep grille across the middle. Even the Jeep insignia right here is blacked out and darkened, something you'll see on the side as well. Really nice front stylized. The headlights even smoky and dark, and of course they illuminate quite well, but when they're off, they're nice and smoky and menacing. Now, this isn't just a pretty front. There's a lot of operation. There's of course safety features down low, but what you'll see is, instead of the fog lights, which are typically tucked here, this has been replaced more for air operation, helping to feed this engine and cool different parts, really all the way down low through the middle. Definitely operation, and of course, striking. Now, what's great about the Jeep Grand Cherokee is it really has that trifecta, the brains, the brawn, and the beauty. And that's across all models, because it really delivers exactly what the buyer's looking for, and especially with the variations when it comes to a power plant, it can truly fit anyone's build. And like you see here, the good old track edition, well, it could just scare some people away, too aggressive. Go with the different models, go have some chrome, some refinement, may fit better at the country club. And that's what's great about this model, because after all, it's the same nuts and bolts, just a little bit different enhancements here and there. And of course, the competition does that well, but Jeep Grand Cherokee may just do a little bit better. Now, what I like here is it delivers the brain right on the outside. That good old intuitiveness when it comes to climbing inside the vehicle. And it starts with a good old key fob, but also just a touch sensitive part of your hand. Just simply slide it right here. It unlocks with ease. Open it up. Simply walk away, press there. Now, one thing I would prefer is that access anywhere you go. Put your hand here, it doesn't do anything. So I like for that brain to really encompass all the entry points, but it's just not the case. Now, one thing I do like is security here at the fill up, because after all, a vehicle like this, you want to minimize, well, vandalism. And where it starts is, well, in the fill up area. And what I like is it's locked all the time. And really, to get access here, there's a button there on the dash. Pop it right open. And what I also like is it is a capless system. Now, I hope it doesn't come as a shock at this point that this is, again, an SUV. And, well, what I'm jokingly referring to is, well, this does have a Hellcat engine, but it also has that workability feature. One part of the SUV, it has the sport and the utility side, something hard pressed to find on like the likes of a Charger or a Challenger. Take those to the hardware store, you're not going to be able to deliver anything back to the house. This vehicle can definitely do it, and, well, get you there just as fast. And that's what I like about SUVs in general. And this might be the first one that truly delivers the full package, the sport and the utility, because after all, this is the business end. Now, what we're looking at here is the good old standard Jeep Grand Cherokee. They didn't go into anything crazy, no wow factor, no huge spoiler, just a little modest offering. And what you see is standard operating procedure. Now, one thing I like is, of course, the huge bank of glass, but one Achilles heel across the industry is the fact that this doesn't pop open. And this is one area that I would like that they go back to, is the ability to pop this glass when you get to the hardware store, allowing the bigger items really to extend back here, go outside the vehicle. Now, again, operation back here, monochromatic body color scheme all the way around. Even better down low, a lot of vehicles really hiding the guts when it comes to the tow features. This vehicle, of course, can tow quite well, but they hide the guts, again, to make it look nice and sleek. Now, as for the operation back here, not a shock. This is a power lift rear hatch, and of course, you can operate it there on the key fob. Now, once it rises to the occasion, what you'll notice is decent height. I'm about 6 feet plus tall, just barely scraping under here. You do have the handles here, but what I like is the equal opportunity feature on this vehicle. And what I'm referring to is for the vertically challenged. The button to lower it is right here, because sometimes just cumbersome to get to the key. Just simply press that, walk away. Now, with everything open here, what you're going to find is about 36 cubic feet of space. Now, that will nearly double as you lay the second row down, but plenty of offering back here for both cargo and, well, maybe even that third row I mentioned earlier. Diving into the second row, what you'll see is, again, you have a split design back here, and this is where it starts to become standard SUV. Even though you got that trackability on the outside, it's still just going to deliver good old Grand Cherokee quality. Now, what's interesting down here, nice carpet. You do have these rails here. That tends to help things slide in and out of the vehicle with ease. It also means, well, it slides back and forth. What I preferred is to make this a little bit more cargo rugged, put some nice rubber gripping pad back here. Really helps everything from slinging around, because especially when this vehicle goes fast, these items are going to, well, sling across to the back. Now, as for folding these seats down, we'll get into that in a second, but look at some other operations. Now, don't get shocked here. You may be cool and have the track, you know, the racing side of things, but you also have nice bag hangers here when you get to the grocery store. You do have a power supply, and of course you can put a tonneau cover here, an optional, that can cover everything back here, so when you do go to the grocery stores, your cool buddies, well, won't know about it. Now, thanks for hanging around this long, because this is what we're all here to see. No one really cares about the standard operating procedures on any Grand Cherokee, especially when you have the Hellcat laying underneath the hood. And one thing I wish we had is the same operation there at the rear tailgate is right here at the hood, because this is truly what you're going to show off more. So why not press a button and let this rise to the occasion? But instead, you got to go kind of more with a manual lift. But what I did notice is it's a one-finger operation. It truly glides up out of the way. And what you're going to reveal is the huge power plant waiting to wow everyone around you. Now, specifically, this is a 6.2 liter supercharged V8. Now, that's going to deliver around about 707 horses and 645 foot-pounds of torque. That, compared to the standard SRT, that's going to be a 6.4 liter V8, and that's going to deliver around about 475 horses and 470 foot-pounds of torque. And what does all that mean? Well, this Hellcat's going to deliver 0 to 60 in around about 3.5 seconds. To find the biggest design feature, where you have to look is not in the seats, the engine, but instead right there centered on the dash, the good old touch screen system. Now, this is one of the biggest ones I've seen in the industry, and what I like for 2018, they've made it even more intuitive. And it starts, of course, with the shortcuts. Now, have you seen this on most Chrysler vehicles? Nothing's really changed, but what they have done is as you press, you will notice a little circle to indicate that it's noting that you're pressing that area. Sometimes these touchscreens just aren't intuitive and let you know that you're interacting with it. By adding that little circle indication, it lets you know that the vehicle understands what you're doing. Now, all the shortcuts, of course, down here are one of the best features I've seen. What I like is that everything is right there. Now, of course, climate controls are down below, but you can put them up on the screen here. That almost gives you more of a heads up kind of look. Instead of looking way down below, it's right here. Now, the control features, what I like is you can automate this. Should you remote start, it will know, well, it's cold outside, you need to turn the heated seats on. Well, it's hot outside, well, you need to turn the vented seats on. Heated steering wheel. All that can be automated or turned off should you prefer. Now, of course, if you want to go with some other apps, they're in here. You got the Wi-Fi hotspot, the Bluetooth ability. All that really is here. And lastly is the navigation, because after all, you're going to be driving people around. They're going to want to get to where they're going, and well, they're going to want you to drive and use the navigation to get there quicker. Now, for climate controls, you'll find the basic operations here underneath the stereo, wedged between the volume and tune select. And one thing to note, this does control fan speed, but sometimes your hand will naturally end up here. So just kind of learning curve, you need to make sure you go there. Otherwise, you'll be blasting some tunes. Now, one thing to note, this is dual zones up front. Simply select your temperature, dial it in. That does reference the screen up above. Nice little shortcuts, but what's interesting is there's no real mode select here. Instead, you really got to reference the screen, go to climate, so you'll end up using the screen a lot more. You, of course, have the fan speeds here as well, but this is one area that really gives you a little bit more intuitiveness of what you're doing versus the basics, which is found here. Low on the dash, you'll find some area for connectability, a little niche, basically 2 USB connections, auxiliary jack, and a power supply, and a decent area which is nice and made of felt, which allows you to put your items, and pretty much was able to put my iPhone in there with ease. Between the front occupants, you'll find the standard gear selector, which allows you to have a sport light mode by simply tapping it over. Now, you can change gears by pushing this forward or backward, or it couples nicely with the paddle shifters here on the steering wheel. Now, another feature to look to is the gear selector knob when it comes to drivability, specifically if you're towing, snow, sport, and track. Now, these, of course, take it to the next level, and you do have launch control over here, as well as the various driving modes and custom. Now, what's great is this is made a little bit easier, not just by the knob, but also what you find on the screen, because as you select different ones, it'll show you exactly what the engine, transmission, and wheels are doing, and gives you the different levels here on the left side. Now, I'm a little bit of a novice at this, but what's interesting is if you hit the custom mode, you can go into custom setup and you can begin changing these specific to what you prefer. Now, for me, did I leave all this alone and let it figure it out? Certainly. But of course, depending on what your knowledge is when it comes to all these different features, you can select, customize this vehicle right down to all these features. For the combination, you're not going to find one digital readout, but instead a combination of analog and digital readings. Now, specifically on the left side is your analog for speed, with a digital readout in the middle for your digital speedometer and digital tach, and of course some other features on the right. Now, what I like is this combination here in the middle, because as you do your gear selector I mentioned earlier, it allows you to see which mode you are in, both by a visual picture and of course a reading. And as you go around, of course, when you get to track, it definitely lets you know you're in track mode. Now, auto is pretty much where I left it all the time, and that really is what you're going to use for the most part. And of course, you have that digital speed, which is really what you want to glance down at for the most part, because keeping this to the speed limit is a daily work. Now, what you'll find is, of course, your selector knob here on the steering wheel can allow you to go through various settings, allow you to set this up specifically how you prefer it. And that's really the new next generation for Gauge Cluster, is it's no longer straight analog, but really a combination or a total replacement to the digital era. Now, one area the Grand Cherokee truly shines that the Challenger just can't compete is here in the second row. And after all, both vehicles are going to get you 0 to 60 in a hot second, but this one's going to do it a little bit more comfort. And where it starts is here in the second row, really specifically the legroom numbers. Now what you're going to find is around about 38 inches, about 40 inches in the front. And where you see it is in the design of the front seat backs, really nice and arching, giving a little bit more breathing room for the knees. Now as for the overall design when it comes to the bench, pretty much standard operating procedure, a little bit of individualized attention on the side, and nice no hump here, really allowing people to find positioning for their feet. Now that does it for this edition of Road Warrior and our test drive behind the wheel of the 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk Edition. And just a reminder, it has that trifecta, the brains, the brawn, and the beauty. And of course, it all starts right here under the hood and really taking the Grand Cherokee to the next level. And with that, well, maybe to the next level when it comes to cost, really starting around about $90,000 and going over $100 grand when you properly equip it. But of course, just remember that you can get 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, and that can be on the way to the hardware store. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.